Okay, well, I hope everyone is doing well, staying safe during these kind of unprecedented, crazy times that we're living in. But because we're all working remotely, maybe this is a good time to be doing some webinars and actually having some things to watch and learn about. So today's webinar title is Full Chapter, Are You Thinking About It Yet? Now, this might be something that is not on your radar at all. You haven't really had to think about it. If you're based in California, which is where I live, it might be something that is very much something that you think about on a regular basis. So one second here. There we go. So I am Phil O'Neill. I'm with Hydro International. I've been with Hydro International for 3 years now, but I've been in the stormwater market in business for the past 15 years. And as I said previous, I'm based in California. So a lot of my conversation today is going to be related to California, but we feel that a lot of what's going on with the initiative in California is something that's going to be spreading across the United States. So if this isn't something right now that is currently on your radar or something that you're thinking about, it very well could be in the very near future. So a brief overview of what I'm going to be covering today. I'm going to do a little bit of introduction of Hydro International in case you don't know who we are. We're going to talk about the global trash problem, a little bit on legislative regulatory trends, and particularly about California's full trash capture initiative, what's going on there and how that might be spreading across the United States. A little bit on our own Hydro International trash study that we've been doing for the last 4 years. We're going to talk about a couple of the trash capture devices that are approved and maintenance. And then lastly, we're going to talk about how you and all of us can help with this trash problem that we have globally. So Hydro International has a lot of different divisions. I'm with the stormwater side of things. We do have a wastewater treatment side and industrial waste as well. We're truly an international company with thousands of installations all over the world. Our corporate offices are based in the UK, but our stormwater division for America Stormwater is based out of Portland, Maine, and then our wastewater division is on the other side of the country, just outside of Portland, Oregon. One of the things that really separates us from a lot of the other companies is that we actually develop all of our own technologies and continue to improve on those technologies. We don't go out and buy other companies, we do all the development ourselves. And one of the things that's helped us is the fact that we have a world-class hydraulics laboratory back in Portland, Maine. And we've gotten very, very good over the years of learning what our products can do when it comes to removal of TSS, sediments, nutrients, phosphorus, and the like. But one of the things that we really hadn't concentrated on until a few years ago was the pollutant called trash. And it's becoming more and more of an issue, and we're now focusing more and more on making our water quality devices able to take care of the trash problem. We conducted our own field test of collecting trash, our trash test. We started that a few years ago, and I'm going to go into that a little bit later into this presentation and tell you about it, but we learned a lot from it. We have a vast array of different products to help you with different pollutants. So depending on what you're trying to accomplish, we would have the solution for you. So we're going to talk about trash, and trash in general, I think everybody will agree, it's very unsightly. None of us like to drive down the street, see trash in the median or trash along the sidewalks. It poses a public health threat. We've got lots of illegal dumping going on. There's lots of homeless encampments with lots of trash. And that leads to breeding of rats that then transmit diseases to humans. It also causes a lot of economic harm. Again, going to speak a lot about California, but in particular, Los Angeles is going to spend over $30 million this year cleaning up homeless encampments and illegal dumping. And it's not just Los Angeles, it's all over the state. And you look at all the cities combined, they're going to spend over $436 million this year just cleaning up trash. So it's very much a big problem that we have to deal with. One of the main pollutants that are finding its way into the waterways and finding its way to the ocean, unfortunately, is plastic. And none of us like to see images like this, very disturbing, but it is something that we have to recognize and we have to definitely put our heads around. And you might have seen and attended some of our past trash webinars that we've done. So some of these slides might be duplicate for you, but I find that the information is something that we really need to share and be aware of. So some of these not so fun facts about trash. Humans have produced over 18 trillion pounds of plastic since the 1950s. So to put that in perspective, that's the size of 1 billion elephants. That's an awful lot of plastic. 18 billion pounds of trash end up in the ocean each year. And 70% of that trash is plastic. And 80% of the trash in the water originates on land. So what we really need to do is we need to think of a way for us to capture this trash while it's on land before it gets into the ocean. This last statistic, I don't want to think that it's ever going to come a reality, because they're saying if we continue on the trend that we're on now and don't do anything about it, it's estimated that by 2050 there'll be more plastic in the ocean than fish. That's a pretty scary statistic in my mind, and hopefully in yours as well. You've all probably seen and read about these worldwide garbage patches that are all over the world, that are accumulating and growing every year. The one I pay attention to the most is the one closest to me off the Pacific coast, in between San Francisco and the Hawaiian Islands, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. That's continuing to grow every year, and it's actually currently the size, twice the size, I should say, of Texas. You might have read about this Dutch inventor, Boyan Slat. He developed a prototype of a way for him to be able to go out and clean up these garbage patches. If you're interested, you can go to the oceancleanup.com and read more information about it. But you probably heard that they did launch one of his prototypes out to the Great Pacific Garbage Patch in between California and Hawaii, 800 miles off the coast. He raised about $40 million to get the initial going, but the cost of this to deploy 60 devices, he says, is going to be $360 million. Now that's not even including the cost of what it's going to cost to actually maintain them. So the cost is going to be obviously much, much higher. The other thing to consider with his program is that it's very experimental. He's learning as they go. They did their first prototype and hauled it out to the Great Pacific Garbage Patch last year and put it in place. And about New Year's this year, they went out to check on it. And they found that because of the waves and the wind and all the turbulence that goes on out in the middle of the ocean, it was too much for his system, and it actually dislocated a portion of it. And what it did is allowed a lot of the plastics and trash that they were capturing to escape. The other thing that they realized is that it actually wasn't moving as fast as the plastics. It's being generated, it moves with the wind and with the tides, but the plastic itself and the other trash was moving faster. So they now are taking that the prototype and they're bringing it back in. They're going to be retrofitting and they're going to be making some changes. But the whole fact is that it is experimental. They're learning as they go. So at least somebody's doing something. They're coming out with some ideas, but we can see that cleaning up trash in the ocean is going to be extremely costly. So what are we doing about addressing the trash problem? If you look back to the 1950s, this is a magazine cover from the Life magazine where everybody was celebrating the plastics. It was going to be our life-saving deal. It's going to cut down on our household chores, and plastics are going to make us all a happy family, just like the family that you see in the picture there. You might even remember from the movie The Graduate in 1967 when Dustin Hoffman is graduating and contemplating his life and what is he going to do, and Mr. McGuire grabs him out of the party and brings him outside by the pool and says, "I have one word for you, plastics." So plastics was looked at back in the 50s and the 60s as the great future, and obviously it was a big future. Lots of business comes from plastics. But if you jump forward now to 2020, you know, you see a lot of bans now on plastics. There's a lot more education and awareness of recycling and not using single-use plastics. There's a lot of places now, particularly where I live, where you don't even get the choice of a plastic bag anymore. It's becoming a thing of the past. If you look at some of the states that have banned single-use plastic, California was actually one of the very first states going back to 2014. But more and more states have followed. And I think that if we were to have this webinar again in, say, another 2 years from now, the list that you see for the states and cities that are banning single-use plastics is going to grow significantly. It'll be very interesting to see. So what do we do about plastics, or what do we do about trash in general? What can we do about it? Well, solution number one would be obviously to make less waste. You know, more and more countries are tackling the single-use plastic problem by banning it outright. And we're seeing more and more countries with plans like India and Canada and the EU all plan on banning single-use plastics in the next few years, which I think is a good thing. I'm going to launch a little poll here, and I want to get your feedback. I want to know, do you live in an area where there are any plastic, or there are any bans or fees associated with disposable plastic bags, straws, or cutlery? And I'm going to launch that right now. I'll give everybody a few minutes to chime in. Okay. All right, I think everybody's had a chance. We'll go ahead and close this poll out. And we'll share the results here. So sharing the results, looks like 46% say yes, there is some sort of a ban. 47% say no, 8% not yet, but it might be coming. So that's interesting. So I just wrote that down. We've got 46% saying yes. Let me hide this poll. And we'll go to the next slide. If it will advance here for me. Let's see here. There it goes. Some technical difficulties. So interestingly, we did the same poll going back 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, when we asked this question, we had 27% say yes. And so you compare that to this year, we had 46% say yes. So I think that what I was saying is that indeed what's happening is this is going to become more of a trend across the entire United States, not only the United States, but probably the world. So that's pretty interesting. So obviously making less trash and banning single use is a great idea, but the other solution is to capture more trash in general. If you look at the right-hand picture there, that's a picture inside one of our units, the Downstream Defender, and the trash that it captures. And the reality is that no matter what we do, there's always going to be trash. So the most important thing for us to do is for us to figure out a way to capture that trash on land before it makes its way to the waterways. And one way to do that is to enact more trash TMDLs, much like California is doing. And I'm going to talk a lot about that in a couple of more slides. But one of the other things too is to make maintenance part of the permitting process. If you put any of these devices underground and do not maintain them, they are not going to be functioning as intended. So maintenance definitely has to be more of a priority. So I'm going to launch a second poll here. And I want to know, there, is there a trash TMDL in your area? In other words, are you now, when you're looking at using a unit, not just looking at removing TSS removal, are you thinking about trash, and or is it becoming more of a regulatory thing in your area? So I'm launching the poll. Give everybody a couple more minutes here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close out the poll. And I'm going to share the results with you. So it looks like now we've got 22% yes, 55% no, and 23% really not sure. So that's pretty interesting. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at that compared to what we had last year. And for some reason, the computer doesn't want to advance after a poll. One second here, having another technical difficulty. I apologize for the technical difficulties. There we go. I don't know why it's taking so long after that. Anyway, so this is the results that we did of this exact same poll a year ago. And a year ago, we had 17% say yes, whereas this year we had 22%. Now they're pretty close to the same. It'll be interesting. I can't tell from the poll where geographically these answers are coming in from. If you're in California, I would anticipate that that's where most of these yeses are coming from, and maybe one of the other states that are talking about TMDL. So I think that maybe in the next 2 years we do it again. I think there will be a much greater difference in those numbers. So we talked about the problem, we talked about some solutions, but who's actually doing it right now? If you look at the full trash capture TMDLs, California right now has a statewide initiative for full trash capture. Every single city needs to be fully compliant by the year 2030. But there are other areas in the country that are also, we see a lot of TMDL usage and requirements. Baltimore, Austin, and Florida are all some of them. But California started back in 2015, where the State Water Board adopted and proposed the final proposal to the Water Quality Control Board of how they were going to have each of the cities throughout the state meet 0 TMDLs by the year 2030. And each of the cities had to have something turned in to the State Water Board by December of 2018. And what they did is they had to tell them which compliance pathway they were going to utilize to achieve that, either track 1 or track 2. Track 1 is installing and operating and maintaining full trash capture systems that are approved by the state of California. Those are things like our Downstream Defender, DryScreen, and others. Track 2 is kind of a combination. It's utilizing some of the full trash capture devices, but it's also using maybe multi-benefit projects like LID, bioswales, other pre-treatment devices in front of those, possibly putting screens on the front of curb inlets or drop-in inlet filters, or utilizing staff in the city to actually have more men on the street actually physically picking up trash, or increasing street sweeping. So that's just a combination going that direction. And if you Google full trash capture in California, you're going to see, or full trash capture devices, you'll get to a page that will list you all of the products that are approved. And currently with Hydro International, we have 3 of our products that are on the approved list for full trash capture: the Downstream Defender, the Hydro DryScreen, and the Upflow Filter. Unfortunately, the state incorrectly categorized our Upflow Filter under catch basin inserts, when indeed it should be up above under high flow capacity trash devices. So we've notified them that, and hopefully in the very near future they're going to move that. So we looked at trash studies, and one of the first ones we could find was going back to 2012, where the Friends of Los Angeles River did a very thorough trash study. They collected all the trash, and then they took the time to actually separate it into different categories. Oops, accidentally advanced there. They took the time to actually put it into separate different categories so that they could figure out what were the real problem pollutants that they're dealing with in their area. Well, very similar to that, California Coastal Commission, they have their coastal cleanup days where they go along the beach and collect trash. And they do the same methodology, and they take it and break it into actual categories. And what they found with theirs is that the #1 pollutant along the beaches in California is by far cigarette butts and filters. But interestingly, if you look at the rest of the trash that was collected there, of the other 9 of the 10, 7 of those all actually fall under the category of the food industry. Fast foods, food wrappers, cups, plates, straws, and the like. And if you actually combine all of those together, that's really close to the 37% that the cigarette butts are as well. So we're finding that the 2 main pollutants are cigarette butts and food. See if I can advance here. Don't know why my screen is not advancing. Apologize again. There we go. So one of the things with California to be approved for a full trash capture device, the requirement is that you have a 5mm screen or smaller. So that's a 5mm hole, typically on a stainless steel screen. And the reason for the 5mm that you'll read about if you decide to go on to the California site to read more about this, the reason for the 5mm is that #1 pollutant that they had for the California Coastal Commission, and that is a cigarette butt. So a 5mm screen has the capability of capturing a cigarette butt and larger. And we've got, like I said, 3 of our devices on the list. We will have our first defense approved very, very shortly. We've just submitted on that with a 5mm screen. So we will have 4 devices that'll be approved. So I told you about our hydro trash study that we did on our own. And this goes back to 2016, where we had volunteers just from Hydro International. All of us go out and actually collect the trash and do a study similar to what the Friends of Los Angeles River did. It provided a couple things for us. One, it obviously taught us a lot about what trash is there. But not only that, it also gave us a lot of positive publicity with the public. People became more aware of really what's going on with trash. And we did this along Baseline and Annual at Main Mall on the southeast corner of the property, which is about 1.8 acres. And these are just some scenes from the field of all of our staff out there collecting the trash, weighing it, taking the time to sort it, and then we did our own results. We collected 25 bags with a total of 261 pounds, and then we took the same methodology that the Friends of Los Angeles River did, and we broke it into different categories so we could see what the main pollutants were. You can see the first year in blue was much higher than all the rest, and we would think that the reason for that is maybe the area that we conducted it in had never been cleaned up before, so that first year obviously had a lot of trash. And then the preceding years obviously was less because we're going to the same place every time. But if you guys are interested in this, I have a lot more slides on this trash study, but if you're interested in it, we'd be happy to share that data with you, so you can let us know after the webinar, and we can do that. So just to show you a couple of our products that are on the full trash capture approved list, and talk about a little bit of why you would use one over the other. This is our Hydro DryScreen. It's designed to remove sediment, nutrients, and trash. And it's a way to have one area of maintenance for a large amount of trash and debris, as opposed to having multiple drop-in inlets all over your city, multiple points of maintenance. You can maybe find a low point where everything flows to and install one of these devices to capture a large amount. This is a look inside one of our Hydro DryScreens, and this is, you can see that those holes in the screens are much larger than 5mm. If you do need to specify a Hydro DryScreen and you want it to be for full trash capture, you just need to indicate that, and we would install a 5mm stainless steel screen on both the vertical and the horizontal sections of it. And it's designed for large pipes, large peak flows, works good in shallow areas. Again, trash and floatable removal, nutrient removal, and sediment removal. And the reasons you would specify this over maybe another one is, the large screen size is going to allow you to capture a lot more debris. The flow distribution plate, and I'll show you in the next screen, it allows to use a lot more surface area. and allows you to go longer between maintenance cycles. The screen being up and out of the water allows all the natural organic material that's going in to not biodegrade down below in the water. It stays dry up above the water line and doesn't cause any nutrient pollution going downstream. And as I said, works very well with large pipes and large flows. That triangular shaped stainless steel plate at the front is our distribution plate. This allows the water to do two things. Number one is the water is coming into the unit. It slows the water down a little bit, so it doesn't allow everything to pulverize itself into the back screen. It also does, it allows to split all of the debris coming in, which then doesn't clog up one area as quickly. And we've done some tests with blinding, purposely clogging the screen, as you can see the picture on the right, where we've clogged it up to 80%, and we still find that the product performs as intended, even if it's not being maintained. And when it comes to maintenance, it's extremely easy to maintain. A Vactor truck can come in, you have 3 access points to be able to pop the manhole lids, and you just get down in there and skim out anything on the top of the screen, and then each of those screens have a retractable hinge that allows the screens to flip up and allows you access into the sediment zone, where you then just clean out the sediments with the Vactor truck. Now, if you don't have the footprint, or you might not have the large high flows, you might want to use something a little different, like our Downstream Defender. This is a hydrodynamic separator technology and allows you to be able to go down to as small as 4-foot diameter round manhole. So if you don't have the high flows or the large pipes, this might be a perfect solution for you and still meet the full trash capture. Now, with any of these systems, when you go to put it underground, you have to think about maintaining it. If you don't maintain it, they're not going to perform as intended, even if it's a pond or a bioswale. Those are all things that still need to maintain. So if you're working with your client, or you are a municipality considering putting some of these devices in the ground, Hydro International has our own maintenance division. So if you need any cost estimates, or if you're looking for someone to actually do it, you can contact Hydro International, and we will be happy to provide you or your client with a quote. So now we've talked about all of the problems, but in the end, what is it that we can do, all of us do, to help eliminate trash? Well, if you're a designer, you might be specifying or thinking about putting something in to remove TSS, but there's nothing to say that you couldn't add a trash screen as well and get 2 bangs for the buck. Adding the screen, even if it's not, regulatory approval in your area, it can give you the peace of mind as a designer that you're doing some good, and you're actually going to do something to capture the trash on land before it makes its way to a waterway. If you're a regulator, maybe you can do something similar to what California is doing and implement some trash TMDL and talk about maintenance for those. And or you could even do your own trash study like we did. When we did our trash study, it helped us with a local stormwater coordinator to actually get a ban of plastic bags in the Portland area. So if you do your own, maybe you can help implement some other bans in your area as well. And this is just a funny little slide I decided to just put up because I did this presentation with my marketing manager, Bridget, the other day, and she found this Garbage Pail Kids Foul Fill. So I just thought I'd throw it up for grins. So this is Foul Fill signing off. I hope you guys enjoyed the webinar today. It was pretty short, but at the end of this webinar, once I hit end, it will bring you to a post-webinar survey. If you take that survey, you're eligible to win a $50 Amazon gift card, and we will notify the winners this week who wins. And we'll also be sending out PDH certificates in the email no later than Friday of this week. So that's my information there, my phone number. If any of you want to jot it down, if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call. If you're not in my respective region, I can put you in touch with a stormwater specialist with hydro in your region that can help you. But by all means, if you have any questions about what I covered, feel free to give me a call. And I want to wish you all a healthy rest of your week. Please stay safe. I hope you are enjoying your time with your families. And thank you very much for attending today's webinar.